You're listening to the Staging Sips podcast with Lori Fisher. This podcast is dedicated to helping real estate staging CEOs build healthy businesses that grow, flow, and thrive. So we are back with part 2 with Racheal Moore of MadMod Home, based in California. And we scheduled a part 2 because we had like a podcast episode after the podcast episode. And we thought it would be really valuable to bring to you guys the conversation that we had. So I'll give you a little bit of background and then I'm going to jump in and invite Racheal to come in and join the conversation. We started talking at the end all about the mindset shifts and changes that you go through as a business owner and how much your mindset gets challenged along the way with your own, insecurity and perfectionism, as well as clients being new to the staging process and maybe being demanding, and just what that worry can do to you, and how, in Racheal's case, how meditation has really started or has really improved a lot of that for her over the course of the last year and a half. So Racheal, welcome back. Thanks for coming back on.
Thank you so much, Lori. Yeah, I love that you said that we had a podcast episode after the episode. And it was funny because it was like, all this stuff, this needs to be shared with other people. This is so important.
Yeah, so and we were both saying that there's such a gap in talking about this aspect of business, which is you can get all of the actionable, implementable kinds of strategies and tools and things like that. But sometimes sometimes we stand in our own way through the thoughts that we have or through the worries that we have unnecessarily. So I would love to start back where we were when we were talking about that, when you had mentioned that you had been in a phase of your life and business where there was a lot of worry, there was a lot coming up, you were having a hard time sleeping, and that you sought out meditation. So I want to go back to what were the things that you were experiencing as a result of this business?
Yeah, I'd say that the thing that was the most troublesome was the way the place that my mind would go during our slow holiday season. Mm-hmm. So starting around mid-November or so, that's our slow season, the holidays, and nobody really wants to list. And for years, I would get super anxious during that time. It would be the time where I was supposed to be spending time with friends and family and enjoying maybe a slowdown. But I just associated not staging with not doing enough, I suppose. And the money wasn't coming in like it had been during the summer and the early autumn. And I would just found myself constantly clenching and tense and just ruminating and catastrophizing, and just that this slowdown meant that it was never going to pick back up again. And I was talking to, I was in therapy, and I was sharing with my therapist that I was just always worried, when we weren't actually staging, installing stagings. And she was like, oh my gosh, that's not good. Let's figure that out. And she prescribed me 3 meditation sessions per day. That was her prescription.
Ooh, okay. All right. I have a couple of questions based on what you just said, and then I'm really curious what those sessions involve. So when you said that you felt like you weren't doing enough, that thought of not doing enough, what did that relate to? Did that mean around your marketing, or what came up there?
I think so much of what I feel like I do is when I'm working, you know, that like, are you working in your business or working on your business thing? I was so identified with like the actual act of creating the designs and installing the stagings. And at that time, not really acknowledging all of the work that needs to be done when you're not doing that, which is, you know, batch creating content for social media or your email to your clients or organizing your warehouse or, you know, implementing new systems, putting together trainings for your employees, you know, all of the things that go along that aren't the like the actual staging stuff.
Yeah.
And it just it made me realize that there's just so much more to this than just the physical act of putting a lamp like on a table and then putting a stack of books and then putting a little thing which I love to do. I mean, I love to do that. That's where I get my energy and my like, you know, life force comes from, like putting the pillows, like, you know, chopping the pillows just so.
Oh yeah. And I've seen your work and they are chopped perfectly. Well, yeah. And I love that distinction because it's so fascinating because when we talk, you know, we talked about the E-Myth.
Yeah.
Right? And how, you know, you can be a technician in a lot of ways inside of your business because if you know, like in the case of your husband, he's your sales and marketing, like he's the sort of the technician in that role. So it's really fascinating for you that, and I think this is I think this is absolutely for all of us. We all start out envisioning us staging all the time.
Yeah.
And don't really think about that working on the business and don't even know, to be honest, a lot of times what to even do to work on the business. I think that in the early days, I remember back to that being a really hard thing. Like, what should I be doing in those downtimes? So you just listed a lot of great ones. So if you need to rewind 10, 20 seconds, 30 seconds back to take notes of what Racheal just said, all those things are so important. But that said, you also mentioned that revenue wasn't coming in at that time. And so that creates its own set of worries. And I know over the years when I'm like batch creating social media content, especially because it's harder for me, I have thought, is this the best use of my time? Should I be doing something else? So then there's like a whole set of thoughts that go down that path because, like you said, the revenue isn't coming in. So I'm curious, like even that part, you know, was that the primary stressor, the revenue as well? Or was it the fact that you were so not thinking that working on your business was as valuable as working in your business?
I think it was just like an overall like unhealthy relationship to my job, in that I was so identified with the physical act of doing it that I couldn't, and I don't think I was even really doing any of the things that I just listed at that point. I think I was so caught up in my own head. And this is why I just want to be really honest here. And I like that, you know, you draw out this like real honesty in your guests because, you know, it can feel like really isolating being like a business owner because you just you don't have like coworkers aren't necessarily the same as if you were like, you know, working in a corporate environment where you have people that you can kind of like relate to and commiserate on the same level. When you're a business owner, it's scary when it's, you know, when it's just you. I mean, I have, you know, my mom and my husband, so it is not as isolating as it could be for some. But even with us, you know, like sometimes I'm fearful of bringing up certain things that I'm going through like internally because I don't want them to know, because I
Right.
feel like ashamed of like, the fear that I'm having.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like when the money, and it's just like this, it's like, I think I had some realizations about money just not too long ago, like maybe a couple months ago, and that like it's going to fluctuate. Like there's not like some money comes and money goes. Money is not like a permanent thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of, I try to look at it in kind of like a Zen way where it's like, just because like the market, like we work in real estate, and
Right.
it's just like it shifts. It's just like it just does. There's
Yep.
no way you can know when it's going to be like a good year and when it's not. It's like, interest rates, like the raising of the interest rates, and like, really affected us. And then like I think we're doing better this year because of the news that they might be dropping several times this year. But I don't know.
Right.
So if you work in an industry that's so contingent on a particular market that happens to be volatile anyway, you can't really measure your success. And like the word success has to kind of change with the seasons, so to speak,
Right.
because yeah, like I wouldn't say that, we weren't a successful business, because we have tons and tons and tons of clients that
Right.
call us and want to work with us. Just sometimes they don't have any listings and they don't have anything for us to do. So
Yep.
what does that mean?
Right.
What does it mean? It just means nothing.
Yeah. Well, it's so, and I think this is so great too for the growth business owner that's listening, you are in those early stages of your business. What Racheal is describing is a challenge just in general in the real estate market, and it will continue as you grow your business, and you end up in like the accelerated phase of business or the leveraged phase of business. It doesn't go away, and all we can do is plan accordingly, plan a little differently, and manage our own mindsets, which is what I'm excited to hear about. And I just want to say the one thing that I started calling these slower periods in business at one point was integration periods. And I called them that because it was like you came off of having a busy season, and that's when you realized all the things that maybe weren't functioning well in the business, and you had an opportunity to make some changes. So, but for me it was just like such a good mental shift. It was one of the tricks I had to employ for the same reason, because I would get to those in Philadelphia region. Summer also slows down. August, no one is here, hardly anyone's
Mm-hmm.
listing. And then in the winter. But yeah, so anyway, all that to say that managing your mindset is huge. And I'm really curious, the meditations 3 times a day that were prescribed to you, what did they look like? Were you meant to focus on something different each time? Same thing? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. So the meditation 3 times a day prescription, when she first said that, I thought you were going to prescribe me some like anti-anxiety like thing. That's what I was
Yeah.
looking for. She's like, you don't need that. So I've been experimenting it's been like, I would say it's been like I want to say it's been like 9 months of consecutive days. I haven't missed a day for 9 months, and it looks like this. So I have an app called Insight Timer, which I would say I use more frequently than any other app. But there's tons. There's Calm and Breathe, amongst others, and then there's also stuff on. You can do. There's a podcast, and there's a YouTube. There's so many resources for guided meditations out there. So I think the first one I ever listened to was just like a woman talking and saying like, to breathe, and, breathe in like a breathing guided thing. And then, I think it was an anxiety and worry specific one. And it was basically like focusing on the now, focusing on the present moment. Like, is everything like okay, like right now? Like right now I'm not, I have shelter, I have water, I have, I have love, I have like, I have everything I need in this very moment. And that was just so comforting to me. And I think the breathing and the focusing on the now, I was able to train, because what you do is when you meditate, you try to focus on, what I try to do is I try to focus on not thinking, so that when I'm overthinking about anything, I can like kick in this like training to be like, stop overthinking this thing. So it's, I see it as a type of like a training. Like I'm working out my brain to be able to put the brakes on when I'm just spiraling out in fear, anxiety, worry.
Yes.
And yeah, so it's kind of like training.
And so how long would you do this in each of those sessions? Like, how did it start? Did you start like, because even a minute or two can seem like a long time, I think.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, actually not. The actual like time that I'm able to not think of anything isn't very long, but the sessions that I do, I try to do about like a 15 to 20 minute guided meditation, so that at least some chunks of that are spent with a clear head.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was, I do like a 15, sometimes half an hour. It depends on like how much time I have, but I usually do it. Well, lately I've been doing it just lying down in bed. So it was easiest for me to wake up about 20 minutes earlier than I normally would, but I didn't even get out of bed. I have these soft headband headphones.
Oh yeah, we were talking about those, the cozy bands.
Yes.
And we'll link these things, all the resources and the apps in the show notes.
Perfect. So they're comfortable. I just put them on in the morning, right when I wake up. I open my eyes, and then I just have, the app. Just, I don't look at my phone. I kind of like hold it away from my face so I don't like get that light. I just kind of like side look at it.
Side eye it.
Just there, like very easily accessible. And then I just am lying down. I have just like head, back of my head on my pillow, facing up, and they do like a body scan. Some of these meditations have a thing where you sense your feet, then you sense your toes, and then your shins and your knees, and you just like, you feel these different parts of your body while you're breathing, and you're now in the moment. You're not thinking about the past or the future. Like, what did I do wrong, or what could go wrong at this thing? And I've found that I just don't worry about stuff that much anymore.
So when did you first notice? Well, I'm wondering too, were you skeptical at first, or were you totally like, absolutely, all in on this? Do you remember that?
I had a feeling that it would be beneficial, because my sister had been really into it for a while, and I had actually dabbled in it a bit, but nothing with any regularity. And I thought it was really cool that I could stop thinking about things. That I had been able to get to that point, and there's like this point where I was feeling kind of like tingly, like this like kind of like a tingly sensation that I was like, oh wow, like this is cool, like this is like very just felt like metaphysical almost.
Yeah.
And so she was really into it, and I had started reading just like posts on like Reddit and Instagram, like meditation influencers and stuff. And yeah, so I mean, was I skeptical? Not really. I know that I had actually been to a guided meditation thing at a yoga studio with a friend. It was like a full moon meditation, and it was like a guided thing with the bowls, and like we held crystals and stuff. And at that point, it was very new agey for me, but I had a really lovely experience with it. And I'd done like a sound bath before, so I kind of like that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, no, I think I knew that it would help me from the beginning. And now I'm kind of annoying about it, and I have to like be careful about like, not like being so like preachy about it. Because my husband, I'm like, he's doing it now because I like won't shut up about it. I'm like, you have to do it. Oh my God, it'll change your life. I think he's just doing it so I stop talking about
In that regard, it will change his life.
Yeah. Right.
That's amazing. So when did you first start to notice that you could handle something like, for a lot of us, we have clients who they ask for a change on something, or they don't like what you did, or you can't get to, you can't do the install when they want you to because you're booked out. Like, did you notice that you were able to really start dealing with things like that?
Yes. Yeah. So I think like, I'll give you an example. Would have been like, this isn't like anything super specific, but I know that it had happened. Like a client was, critical or wanted something different. So, I would wake up in the morning and feel anxiety about having to go back and make this change. Because those are my worst. I hate those days. The day that you have scheduled to go pull all the things that you need to go back to the staging and change things.
Mm-hmm.
I hate those days. It's like when I finish that day, I'm so glad that day's over. But there was always a lot of fear and anxiety surrounding those days. Like, well, what if they don't like this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if they don't like the changes? Or like, why did I do it like that? Like, what was I thinking? And so these thoughts like, I'm not good enough, or they think that I don't know what I'm doing. Like because that's the fear for me, is that I look like I have no clue what I'm doing.
Right. And for a period of time in our businesses, we probably genuinely feel that. At a certain point, you get to a place where you're like, oh no, I'm good at what I'm doing. But like, I think anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt.
It's a very common thing. It's the imposter syndrome.
Yeah, totally.
Which is like, that's just part of it. You can't go forth and do something difficult without feeling like you don't know what you're doing. But then, after you're doing it for a while and you do know what you're doing, the feelings that you're creating for yourself, like the messaging saying like, I don't know what I'm doing, or am I good enough, or am I this imposter that sometimes I think that I am? Those thoughts, I realized like because I would be like, okay, I'm going to meditate and this is my time to not think about those thoughts. I was like, I have 23 hours and 45 other minutes today to think about those things all I want.
Mm-hmm.
The thoughts, I would try to meditate and the thoughts would just come popping in. I'd be like, wait a minute. Because I don't want to be thinking those things. Those are just the things that I'm thinking. And I'm like, wait, you have all that other time. This is the time where you don't think about anything. And there's some meditations where you repeat a mantra. So I kind of created this mantra for myself, which was, these thoughts are meaningless, or these thoughts are pointless.
Mm-hmm.
These
Oh, that's
thoughts
so
mean
good.
nothing. Like these thoughts that I would have, like, oh, I should have put, like, there would have been like a little tiny, um, like a smudge or something on like a white sofa. And I'm like, oh my God, I should have put a throw on the corner of that sofa so that they wouldn't see, like, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Stuff that's like, wait, cares? Nobody
Mm-hmm.
cares. And these things would just be like flooding my head, or like, why did I say that, or why did I do that? And also stuff in my personal life, just like random things that I was like, wait,
Yeah.
no, these thoughts, it's only me that's making these thoughts anything. And they don't actually exist anywhere.
Right.
None of this stuff is real. It's just all stuff that's in here in my head.
Yeah.
And if I don't give that any power, if I shut it all down, then that doesn't exist at all. So that, I think, was the most powerful thing for me, was that, like, wait, I don't have to spend all this energy
Mm-hmm.
thinking all these things that don't exist if I don't let them.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all of this is brilliant. So I hope everybody's got notebooks. Go back and start over and listen. Um, that mantra, like that thing to counter, I literally just talked about this in it's 2 episodes back from this. We'll link it to the show notes. The one about goal achievement. And one of them was, when you're achieving a goal, to set a mantra for yourself that's like the idea, like, will this make the business better? Will it streamline the business? Whatever your goal is, like, to have a mantra around it. So having a mantra for when the negative thoughts or the pointless thoughts come in, I think is, first of all, brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
But that idea of the thoughts only existing because you are creating them in your head is like mind blowing. And it's funny because I was thinking that when you said this, I was thinking, I follow a life coach, Brooke Castillo, the Life Coach School podcast. We'll link it in the show notes. It's excellent. But she had talked about how the example of, and I'm a mom of 2 teenage boys. Well, now they're 20-year-old. Oh my God, what am I saying? Teenage boys. They're in their 20s. They're out of college. Like, I have them planted. But so when they were teenage boys, though, the whole idea of the seat being left up on the toilet, and and that, of course, that's a thing for us in staging too. It's like, that's always going to be down. But what she said was, she's like, like, it's only a problem in your mind. It's not a problem in their mind. So you're the only person who is creating the problem, whatever it is, fill in the blank, like, putting the dishes away if they don't get done the right way. Well,
Yeah.
that's only a thought you've created in your mind that creates. So, like, to me, when you were saying that, I was thinking, like, that's so true in business, that us creating it as an issue when a client makes a revision request is, like, they can ask that. That's
Right.
Right. Like, that's totally fair. Or can I pick the furniture, or can you install tomorrow? They're all just questions that we can remain neutral about, and, like you said, not give them power and make them create the thoughts that create the problem. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, a client saying, oh, we really didn't like this, whatever. Like, okay, like, that is literally, everyone has different taste.
Yes.
And you can never, ever please anyone. And everybody's just coming from their own place, and everyone has, it's coming from their subjective reality. So most of anything doesn't have anything to do with you.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's so true. And the other thing that I thought about, and we talked a little bit about this on our last podcast too, was that when you are experiencing something like imposter syndrome for yourself, I was just thinking how, when you have team who's then maybe implementing designs, how it can even translate to your team. right? Like that insecurity, like, are they going to do a good enough job? Have I, like, I don't know if that's too out there, but that was my thought. I was like, oh my gosh, like if you're already experiencing imposter syndrome and you've only just learned how to have team in your business and you're already like vulnerable because you're letting some things go and letting people handle them, like how much that flares up again,
Oh yeah.
but on
Well,
their
so
behalf.
much. Yeah, yeah. I mean, so much of like my issues have been like about control and like, needing to relinquish like
Yeah.
control because like in the E-Myth, like you have to trust. You have to like have some faith that the
Yeah.
people that you've hired and you hired them
Yeah.
are going to be able to fulfill the duties that you have
Yeah.
trained them to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. So, okay. So you started noticing. Now I'm curious. I would love like an example of, so somebody has said they don't like such and such. Like what happens for you? Like how do you respond now that's different than before meditation?
Now I know that something the meditation has helped me deal with is like I said, the like being in the moment. So like I know that even if I feel really uncomfortable right now because I'm receiving constructive criticism, I'm not going to feel as uncomfortable as I do right in this moment forever. I only
Mm.
feel that right now because I'm receiving criticism. And that's
Mm-hmm.
normal to
Mm-hmm.
feel that way.
Yeah.
But it is not a reflection on myself as a person or my value or my worth as a person or as a designer or as a business owner or anything. It
Yeah.
is just one person's subjective experience shared with me because I'm the person that can do something about it.
Right.
And it's like, some people are just a little bit better at expressing themselves than others. Some people write like a very like brusque email with no punctuation and it sounds like they're a jerk.
Yeah.
Maybe they were just really on their phone. And a lot of times what I find is like a client, a real estate client, like a real estate agent, will be like disseminating information that they receive from their clients
Yes.
and they're just kind of stuck in the middle and they don't really know what to do. And like a lot of times, like it'll be like they're getting pressure, the whole thing. Like if you're getting like, if someone's being a real jerk to you, there's probably someone above them being a jerk to them.
Yes.
So it's like, it's just kind of this like slow realization process that like, I don't have to take everything personally.
Yes.
I don't need to think about that. This is not like, this is not say something about me as a person. This is business. This is somebody is paying me to do something. And, the way that we're structured, we take, we take a deposit before we do any work. Like this is, there's so much trust involved on the client's part.
Yep.
And we send them like, a gallery of similar kind of like a style that we would do that would be similar to these photos, but they never know.
Right.
So the fact that like, I mean, we have a pretty darn good success rate and just due to the nature of the trust in this business, it's pretty like I have to just actually now take a minute to appreciate how how much trust that our clients put in us and that means that our reputation is good and the images that we share we try to be as like true to them as possible and keep expectations all managed and in line and don't overpromise all that stuff.
Yeah. No, and I think I think it's really interesting too, your point also about even just communications these days, especially when it comes through via text or email and how we can create a whole other set of thoughts that may not even be there. And that's one of the things that I've realized over time in my business is when I get a text or an email where it seems like the person is upset or frustrated or whatever it happens to be, picking up the phone and having
Yeah,
a call is always very disarming, actually,
it is.
for them. Like a lot of times they're taken aback. I had something where happened several years ago, but it was a big realtor who's always had very high expectations for us as a team, fine, which is great. But we had sent something out where like I must have been following like Amy Porterfield or Jenna Kutcher, one of these online people who sent out
Mhm.
something that was like, hello, beautiful person, blah, blah, blah. And I think I adopted that in some email that had gone out to hundreds of clients over the course of years. But it went to a client that did not like that languaging at all and told their realtor, and their realtor told me how unprofessional it was and that this client, blah, 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 like this whole email about that. And I picked up the phone to call her. She didn't answer the call, and I left her a message. I said, hey, just wanted to let you know, I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. We'll certainly make sure that we change that. If you want me to speak directly to the client to apologize, I'm happy to. And she literally never got back to me, never mentioned it again. It was not a big deal. And I thought if it were as big a deal as she seemed to make it in her email, then I'm sure she would have called me back, but it clearly wasn't. So
Yeah.
I was so glad I didn't spend any time spiraling in, oh my gosh, I just lost this massive client of ours who brings us so much business because of this. Because that, to your point, is probably where I would have been several years earlier in my business as well without all of the mindset work. But it's amazing how much we can read into other people's thoughts and feelings unnecessarily. And like you said, at the end of the day, people in our case, you pay us up front for
Yeah.
every kind of service in full upfront, all of it. And that is a tremendous amount of trust. And, fortunately, it happens few and far between that people aren't pleased. But, like just to know that you're there and you're willing to own it or listen to the critique and work on it, I think is great. But it does take a skill within us, um, to get ourselves there,
Yeah.
which I think is really fascinating. The other thing that you mentioned was going back on the finances. So, I mean, we have a lot that's thrown at us as business owners in this business. Obviously, the clients, the expectations, the fact that in many parts of the country, staging is new. So that's the whole client side. But then there is that whole volatility of this business. In addition to the fact that when you're growing a vacant staging business, that's just operationally a more expensive thing to run. So you've got, these expenses of how, warehousing and things like that. And then you've got a volatile business. What do you do in terms of mindset work to even get yourself through that? Or are there things that you have done to plan for that, throughout the year when you're in your busy seasons? Or is there something you're doing financially or mindset wise to get you through that?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely try to make hay while the sun is shining.
Mhm.
So that when we are slow, it's not as concerning, but things have gotten to a point where it's like, oh gosh, this is, this is just the reality of being a business owner. It can
Mhm.
be scary when the bank account isn't reflective of, what you really at times thought it should be or would be.
Yeah.
And I think that because we work in this, this adjacent to real estate that is so volatile, that's just something that we need to come to terms with and accept and learn how to go. Like during the pandemic, we did a spending freeze. Like we'll
Mhm.
institute like freezes
Mhm.
where we're like, okay, well, we cannot buy anything new. And sometimes it's funny because like sometimes it'll force me to like be super creative in what I do. And some of the
Mm-hmm.
best work that I've done, I think, has been as a result of needing to, do something different because I didn't have what I thought I needed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but I do think ultimately that it's really just this this preconceived notion of what success is, and is it tied to a specific number? And I'll give you a good example of I can relate it to kind of my feelings about my weight. For example, I've always, like many women, had, ups and downs and struggled with, just, eating and exercising or not, or, all that stuff. And I came across this this influencer whose ideas around body image changed the way that I think about that. And it was if you don't, there is no one number that represents fitness or health. It's there isn't, not for one person and not for everybody. The only way you're going to be able to be okay with your body is if you accept the way that your body is right now in this moment. Because it's not about one number.
Yep.
It's about the way that you feel.
And what you make that number mean.
Exactly. If there's one number, then you're going to be chasing that number. You're always going to be chasing this number. Unless you're at that number, you're going to be obsessed with maintaining that number.
Right.
So, and that's kind of this paying yourself first thing, saying not doing things to, not always chasing after something, but paying yourself first in that I'm going to have peace and serenity and calmness now because I deserve it.
Yes.
And if I deserve it and I feel passionate about that and I can create that for myself right now, then the other things will fall into place.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because I always tell the story of, during pandemic and all of that, my weight had gotten to a place that I hadn't been since I was pregnant. I hit this number on the scale and I was like, oh my gosh, I really got to do something because that's not typical for me. And the funny thing was, as I lost all of the weight, which I did, I lost all of it. When I would hit these numbers that on the way up, I was like, oh my God, this is I got to really start dialing it in. I'd cross a certain threshold and be like, oh my God, I got to really start being disciplined. And then I wasn't, and I'd add more pounds on and I'd hit the next benchmark and be like, oh my God, I really got to start focusing on this weight. And then I didn't hit it and I added a few more pounds on. Well, on the way down, I was like, oh my God, yes, I made it to this weight. Oh my God, yes, I'm at this weight. And it was the same numbers. It was just how I thought about them,
Yes.
and what it meant and the context. And I thought that was such a fascinating thing because the same thing in business. And also when we're super busy, sometimes in the spring season, we're like, oh my God, if we could just have a day where we don't have any appointments, it would be so amazing. Wouldn't it? Then we get the days with no appointments. We're like, oh my God, I'm freaking out. What if we don't book another again?
Yeah. Yep. It's the grass is always greener thing. It's it is just always, yeah, I think that's just the way that we're built, the way that, we want what we don't have.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more then about, you mentioned the pay yourself first, and that's paying yourself first in terms of adjusting your perspective. I want to make sure I understand.
Yeah. I okay. It's funny because I'm trying to I've been journaling about this kind of thing too. Like, what does that really mean? I think it means that like my happiness and my peace of mind and my contentment, I'll say that, is not, I don't want it to be contingent upon like hitting goals.
Yeah, like the external, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't want to need to reach for external gratification to feel like a full person. And it used to be, and because, my husband and I, at one point, really, we wanted to buy a home, and we live in Los Angeles where it's very, very expensive. And then that home, like, at some point turned into like a condo, and then, condo turned into like, like a really small condo, like a studio condo. And then it turned into like, you know what? No, this isn't really a good decision for us right now. But because I was in that mindset, I was obsessed with it. And I had friends who were buying houses, family who was buying houses, people, our peers. And I was so, I was caught up in this keeping up with the Joneses that I was like, no, like this is what, success, my parents, they bought a house, and like your parents bought a house, and like your sister, my sister, it's like, this is like, historically, like this is like how, everyone has always like determined this like measure of success was home ownership.
Yep.
And I was like, well, okay, but we could, like, doing the math and everything, like it was possible, but it would have been really uncomfortable for us because we wouldn't have had a lot of money to do like other stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, so then that's not a prudent like life decision. Like we shouldn't do that then. And we agreed like, yes, we will put the brakes on this goal because it doesn't make sense. And then I was like, okay, so does that mean, what does that mean? Like, if this is not, if I know that I'm a successful person because I'm happy and I love my life and I love my apartment where we live because it's super cute, because obviously, we make it really cute.
Yep.
What, there's nothing wrong here. This is all really great stuff. I just have been focused so much on this one thing that I've, because of like our culture and society has like, helped me along to believe that that is success, but it doesn't have to be. Like, why does it have to be that way? So I started focusing my thinking on how much I love our apartment. And I love where we live. Like we live, we're renting, but we're in like this amazing neighborhood that we would never be able to afford if we bought. Yeah. So I get to live in this beautiful place with a Trader Joe's like 2 blocks away.
Oh God, I'm so jealous.
Yeah, because you guys didn't even really have Trader Joe's?
We do now, which is great, but it's not 2 blocks away. And it's probably a good thing because those dark chocolate almonds, sea salt almonds, oh.
I know what you're talking about. Those ones that are very lightly coated.
Yes.
Yeah, those are really good.
Really good.
Yeah.
We'll link to those in the show notes too. No, just
yeah, just like it's all about the way that you perceive things. I don't know if I went off on a tangent or anything, but I think just like so much of this is just like, what is your perception? Am I supposed to be this way? Okay, then if I'm not, then let me like, I guess I was talking about goals. Like, why do I need to like why am I so obsessed with like attaining more and better things all the time? And that's not like, a diss to like having goals. It's just that like maybe those can just be guides, more like guiding to, and like definitely like, if there's like things that I'm doing, like, maybe like things that are like a little destructive. Like over the holidays, I ate so much candy that I was feeling like I felt gross, like I wanted to stop eating like literal candy, and I think anyone can say that like literal candy is like objectively not good for you. So, and I felt in my body like, ugh, I don't like the way that I feel because I'm eating candy like every day. So that was like, that's a goal that I know that is not like, I'm not going to feel shame. It's a healthy goal. And I'm not eating no sugar. Like I'm eating stuff. It's just like, it's not candy.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Well, it is so funny. Racheal, you can't see Racheal, but she's making like a motion like I don't know, like lanes with your hands, like if you put your hands up. And it's so funny because I always say it's like those bumpers in bowling. That's really what your goals are.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was visualizing.
Yeah.
When you said that.
Yeah, it's like just kind of to help keep the ball in the on the lane or whatever. But yeah, I look at them very similarly. Like we're very kindred spirits in so many ways, and that's another one of them too, where it's like, goal setting, a lot of times we use goals against ourselves, and that's, unfortunate because really the whole idea is to give you something to just focus on more than anything, because there's so many things as a business owner that we could focus on and we could measure ourselves successful at or not. But like, I don't know, and maybe now I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent, but like if we understand that those are simply there to kind of as guideposts and those bumpers, like then I think we get a whole lot more out of the experience of being a business owner. Because to your point, I also, my business bestie, I call her, we always have talked about like we went through a period of addiction with our businesses and that enmeshment and how, not achieving the goals was like almost catastrophic. Like, because we worked so much and so many hours and labored so much over trying to achieve these things that, frankly, like what you said, are very external, and there's only so much of it that you can control. There's very little we can control, really, in just our lives in general, I think. But anyway, all those thoughts kind of came like rushing through as you were talking about it, because it's so true. We can really really beat ourselves up. And so it's really interesting. I talk about like your results are a function of your knowledge, your beliefs, which is your kind of your thoughts and your feelings and your actions. And I think so many of us think it's about knowledge and actions when there's that one middle piece, which is you can have all the knowledge in the world about business, how to run it, all of that. But if you're sitting there with beliefs and thoughts that are disempowering, or you're going to ultimately use not attaining your goal against yourself, what kind of satisfaction will we have running these businesses? And I think we hear that from business owners, that they are stressed a lot, that they are not feeling like they're achieving what they want to achieve. And a lot of people in recent years, and I don't know if it's pandemic related, but are closing businesses after years. And I wonder, because I think, if you're a satisfied business owner, is that the decision that you make? And I don't want that. I don't want people to read into that the wrong way, like closing your business is failure. It's not. It's just an interest. Like, to me, it's just been something interesting to watch, knowing how hard this business is and knowing how much mindset work it really takes to find satisfaction and joy and contentment. Your great word there too, contentment in our businesses. I don't know. What do you think as I'm blabbering on?
No, I mean, I agree with everything. I think that like we need to be kind and gentle with ourselves like allow grace for we're human beings. We are mistake makers. We, last night, something I realized that I was doing a lot was like in learning, how to be more present and mindful in the way that I operate. I found myself getting down on myself for not behaving in those ways all of the time, like getting stressed out and like kind of like snapping at someone. And then I would be like, oh my God, I'm so terrible. And then like more recently being just kind with myself and saying, hey, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
It's okay. Generally you're a kind and respectful person. And sometimes you get a little overly stressed and something comes out in the wrong way. It's okay. You can apologize or you can, or whatever needs to be done, and you can move on from that. It is not a statement on who you are as a person. And yeah, and then like, he's talking about closing, businesses like, ending or whatever. I used to think that like, that would be the end of the world. That would be the end of the world. I would be like, I don't know what I would do if I had to do that. Because I don't know how to do anything else. Like this is a very specific thing, and my skill set is very specific to doing this.
Yep.
Which obviously means that I could do like a bunch of other stuff.
I was just gonna say, this is not the end. Oh my gosh, this has given you so many skills. Yeah,
right. But like, thinking like, those times when the bank account was really low, and thinking like, well, I guess because that's where I would go. I'd be like, well, I guess this is the end. We can't afford to pay our rent, and we can't afford to pay our staff, and I can't, like, no, like, well, it's not the end because you have like a buttload of clients. A lot of clients that want to hire you. They just don't have any work for you right now. And B, okay, let's say like it did. Like, let's say we go there and we explore like what would happen if that happened. No, it wouldn't be the end of the world. You would figure it out, because that's the other thing about like worrying and stuff, is that like when I worry, when I have worried, when I was really at my worst, being like a worryholic is what I would even say.
I love
that I would worry. My worry would be so overarching and intense because I would create so many different like scenarios. It would be like a spider web of like, this scenario could happen, and then if that happened, then this and this and this would happen as a result of that, or this. And all these different things could happen, and I was creating this like, web of like, anxiety, when really I'm an adult. I've gone through a lot of stuff in my life, personally, professionally, and when I encounter usually like a problem will come up, I know how to deal with a lot of different things. It's rare that I'm confronted with something where I'm like, I have absolutely no idea what to do.
Yeah.
It does, like, the older you get, the more you do this, like, the less often that happens.
Yes, you become unflappable in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And if I don't know what to do, well, I know now that asking for help is not a failure. Reaching out to colleagues, other stagers that we know, we're in Facebook groups where people are like, hey, like, I don't know what the heck I'm supposed to do about this. I have being in a community, being open, being honest, and like, who knows? Like, I know a lot of stuff, but I don't know. There's so much more that I don't know than I know. And just being open and being humble, staying humble, having humility. The there's this like really cool thing. It's like it was conceived by the poet Keats. It's called negative capability.
Okay.
It's really cool, like concept. Basically, like if you think you know everything, then you're just missing out on like so many other different like viewpoints. Like approaching things with like humility, that like you if you approach things from a place of um like that you don't know anything about, like you don't put your own personal judgment on anything, and you're more likely to learn more and be inspired by more. I'm doing a really
Yeah.
bad job of explaining what this concept is, but it's just a way to get to be more inspired by the world
Right.
around you and be more open to what other people are saying to you. And
Yeah. I think there's the concept in Buddhism called beginner's mind. I'm sure it's not
yes.
called that, but like, but that's essentially it, which is to come to something with that beginner's mindset. No matter how much you know, there's always an opportunity to learn just even one little gem or little pearl that you may not have known, or a perspective. And I think that is, yes, and I think you're right. I like the whole idea of surrounding yourself and being in community with others. Like what this is going to go way back because I was thinking about when you had mentioned that at the beginning, feeling alone and like in your anxiety. Like
Mhm.
there's not many people that you can reach out to be like explain exactly how stressful it is with them really understanding it. Like I remember one time years ago, my husband, I don't know. I had a client who didn't like something and I was going to go, twist myself into knots to make sure I could go get it fixed. And I was kind of explaining this to him and he was like, well, why are you doing that? It sounds like kind of frivolous, or like he was just kind of questioning the whole thing. And I was
Mhm.
like, listen, like his company, they have clients like Apple and Google. And I was like, I was like, I realize that you could never understand because you've got a whole sales force out there that they bring in clients to your company like Apple and Google. Like this is my Apple and Google, and I'm the salesperson that sold the job, and I'm the
Mhm.
person that has to implement the job. Like it just means like that much to me. But I felt like I didn't at that time in this business, there weren't Facebook communities, there weren't um, mastermind groups, like any of that. There weren't podcasts where people would come right out and say, like, yeah, this is a hard business. It's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart.
Mhm.
And certainly mindset was not anything at my forefront at that point, at all. And I think I've told the story. I can't remember if I told you I did. My first business coach, I walked into the room, I paid a lot of money for, and she started talking about mindset as a
Mhm.
business coach. And I was like, what is this BS? Like, but I've come to learn that it's everything. And to your point, like just trying to do your best to create contentment, gratitude practice. Like that's what your one practice reminds me of. Like I have a beautiful apartment and I have a great husband and I love what I do every day and I can help people. Like it's like an inventory, but a gratitude check-in as well.
Yes.
And even as you were listing the things that you were grateful for or that you were kind of checking in on in the here and now, I actually felt like the dopamine in my body. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
I guess I want to encourage other business owners to like really listen to this podcast because you've shared so many great tools and thoughts and ideas here. And to stay engaged with the staging business community, whether that's on Instagram or Facebook or here at the Staging Sips podcast. It's really, I think it's a super valuable thing to do to hear that other people have gone through it, they've come through it, and that it's possible to enjoy and be content in this work and at all levels, at all, whatever success, like you said, whatever success level it is, you can find contentment, gratitude, and solace and peace, I think. So I think any last words you want to impart to the people out there before we close?
Um, just as the last couple of things that you were saying about like community and sharing, like not feeling isolated and stuff, just that I've gotten together with just like another stager just a couple times. There's other stagers that I've hung out with before, like we've gotten coffee, and there's literally nothing like hanging out with another stager and being able to just like talk about all of the crazy, super niche stuff that happens.
Yeah.
And it's just like, there's nothing more satisfying than doing that. It's just so fun. So I just recommend that if our listeners are not doing that already.
Yes, exactly. As I say, if you don't have team too, that's what we do when we do our team get-togethers and meetings. It's like, it's so fun to like hear what other people experienced out at their various like consultations and what people have asked for and what they found in people's houses. Like, it's crazy. That's a whole other episode. But no, this
gross stuff I saw.
Yeah. Ooh, that might be like an Instagram prompt. Like, I'd love to hear what people have. Anyway, thank you so much for being here and for sharing all of that. I think it's going to be super valuable to business owners at every level. And thank you. And so where to find you? Tell us your website and where to find you.
Oh, yeah. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Our Instagram handles at MadMod_home. Our website is MadModHome.com. And then, here on this podcast again, maybe, Lori and I will have our own podcast where we just talk
totally.
But yeah, I think, that's
awesome.
where we are.
Super. Well, thank you so much. So everybody, that is your sip of the week. And we'll put all of the resources that we've touched upon today in the show notes, including, MadMod's Instagram and Facebook and website and all that good stuff. So that's what I got for you this week. Bye for now. I'll see you next week. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Staging Sips podcast. If you love what you've learned here today, please take a minute to rate and review it so more staging business owners can find us. And if you want to learn more about how to market and grow your staging business more strategically, I'd love to see you join us inside of the Rethink You Accelerate Mentorship Program. It is open enrollment. You can get more details at rethinkhomeinteriors.com/rethinkyou. Would love to see you inside.